ready for Susie.
I'm not here.
You were doing it, didn't you?
Hey.
Yeah, I just got a.
Yeah.
Fred's a trooper.
Good. Right, we can do this. You got this.
All right.
Good, thank you. Okay, today is September 7th, 2021. It is 7 o'clock. This is the Victor Zoning Board of Appeals. I'd like to open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, republic for which it stands. Welcome, everyone. I think, Mr. Reese, you know the drill, so you're just going to have to listen to me again. For those that haven't been here before, Zoning Board of Appeals, haven't been here before, real simple. We're going to give you an opportunity to make your presentation. We will do our best not to interrupt you when you're finished. The board is likely to ask you some questions. What we would appreciate, and I think Kim especially, is that if we're talking, just hold your thoughts a moment, and when you're talking, we will hold our thoughts so that we don't want to talk over each other and create a difficult record for him to make. The other part is that if there's exhibits, whether the exhibits that you've already submitted or that you want to submit more, that's fine. But if you are describing something on an exhibit, a map, what have you, do your very best to use compass direction instead of, as you can see here, as you can see that the record is going to have a really hard time here, there, and everywhere. But if there's structures and compass and roads, whatever, that's going to be very helpful when we review the minutes and hopefully create a good record. With that, next order of business I would like is a approval for the August 2nd, 2021 minutes. I have a motion for approval.
I'll make that approval.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sarah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Outstanding. Mr. Reese?
So I'm not sure what you want me to do after the first time.
Well, you submitted a few more documents. I think you sent something to Al with some other details, and that I think is helpful,
Okay,
along with a note from Joshua Knapp,
right.
which he has no objection, so that's good. So the nutshell is that you don't have a garage. You would like a garage.
Correct.
And really the only logical place that it can go because of the present, it's stone driveway right now,
Yes,
is right in line with the stone driveway. And to make it go over and be in compliant with the code is going to push it behind the house and potentially create some problems. So is there anything else you'd like to add, things that you think we ought to know?
well, just that there was an existing one-car garage, but that was gone long before I bought the property. And so I'm basically trying to put it in the same place as that, which is 20-some feet to the west of the house. I don't know if you saw it on the old site map.
Yes.
And that was only a single-car garage, and most people now want two-car garages. So in order to get it, we need to get closer to the lot line.
The shed that I see in one of the pictures, is that going to remain there?
No, that's long gone.
Okay,
That was gone before.
all right. Sarah, any questions, comments, concerns with this one?
No.
Donna?
None?
Matt?
I think I'm all set. Just real quick, so your driveway, you're going to extend your driveway to this?
Actually, the driveway does go past the house already.
Was
back to
already-
where the old garage was. It just is all grown up to garage.
And then the water pump, is that existing? Is that?
That's the well. That's an
Okay.
actual,
So
well,
I take it that's just gonna be right on, I mean, you're,
it's like maybe 6 feet to the south of what the
South of
driveway will be.
okay. No questions?
Great. All right, so the placement on one of your surveys shows 16 feet, was it 16.62 feet?
That's the garage that's no longer
Okay, got
there.
it.
That's the 1973 survey.
So sometimes people get, I guess, confused.
I
on
gave you the new
code.
survey, too.
Yep.
Okay,
What we're, the measurement is taken from the eave, not from the garage wall,
okay,
right? So your 15 feet request, it's going to be measured from the eave of.
so the
garage.
8 feet would be from whatever the soffit is, the gutter, whatever you're saying.
Yeah.
Correct.
The thing that protrudes the most from the structure.
Right.
Yeah.
So 8 feet is going to suffice for you. Because what we don't want to create is, if it turns out to be 7.5 or 7, then the code enforcement officer comes back, and then it's a bit of a.
I understand, and I was going to ask for 5, but we decided, my son and I, we can make it with 8.
Right, you
It'll
can
just
do-
be a little bit behind the house.
Okay, so you can do 8, 8's good.
Right.
Awesome. All right, so let's walk through the, unless there's someone here from the public wants to speak for or against. I don't see anyone, so we can proceed forward with the proposed resolution. All right, first, an undesirable change would not be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties created by granting of the area variance. For this, for today, as well as we're here, hold on.
August 2nd.
August 2nd. Facts were presented that there was a garage, there is no current garage, and there is a current gravel driveway that would best suit the proposed two-car garage. I'm not, it's supposed to also with Mr. Knapp.
Yep.
Not opposing it. I don't see how it could present any change in the character of the neighborhood. Would anyone like to add anything else to the first criteria? Second, the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. It really, again, much like for the first criteria, it makes little sense to move the garage behind the house instead of right in line with the current gravel driveway. Would anyone like to add anything else to the second criteria? Third, the area variance is not substantial. Again, is the first and second criteria. It's not going to change the character of the neighborhood. It makes sense to keep it in line with the gravel driveway. And there is not a current garage with the house. Anyone want to add anything else to the third criteria? Fourth, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. Not seeing or hearing anything that the location of the proposed garage would have any kind of impact on the environmental conditions of the neighborhood. Any other additions to the fourth criteria? Fourth, the alleged difficulty is self-created. The consideration is relevant to the decision of the board, but should not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Anyone like to add anything else or conditions to this proposed variance? Hearing none, a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Awesome, good. Good luck to you. Thanks so much for your patience.
Nope, no problem. Thank you for everything, folks. So do I get it in writing or something, or what? What do I
You will
take to the
get,
code enforcement officer?
in short order.
I don't need it for months. I got a whole lot of work we're doing in the house, so.
So what the steps are is that Kim is going to present the draft of the resolution. I'll take a look at it. I'll sign it. You, probably within the next 4 to 7 days is
Don't need
usually
that soon.
the wheelhouse of when pen hits the paper.
Don't need it that quick.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Sir, you do know you need a building code or a building permit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, yep, just checking. Okay. Next, 770 Canning Parkway. Who's presenting? Okay. And you are?
My name is Chris Fogarty. I'm from the DeMarco Group, the owner of 770 Canning Parkway.
You are asking for, yes, 4 variances.
Yes, that sounds
So
right.
go ahead, make your presentation, and just to give you a heads up, sometimes we'll parcel them out, if you will, and take them one at a time because there's different nuances to it. If we can put them together, then we'll do it. So let's see what you got, and we'll go from
Well,
there.
it's gonna be pretty simple and short. A couple of the things that were noted. We had ID sign systems survey the location, take a look at what's there right now. The intention isn't really to change the location of the sign. It's obviously a little bit larger than what's there now. It's going to stay in the same area. It's just going to be slightly larger, 24 and a half square feet. Reason it was just a little bit larger than what's there right now, in order to accommodate the design of the sign itself. So that was the one issue. It's just the location that works for the building and for identifying the building. The setback is obviously a little bit more flexible. If it's not acceptable setback, the sign company did say that they can move it if necessary. That's not out of the realm of possibility for them to accommodate that. The reasoning behind trying to make the sign not just about identifying the building address, but more trying to help the 2 tenants that sit in that building, because that building sat vacant for a solid 3 years before we were able to find a tenant. The 2 tenants have requested since they moved in to have some kind of sign identifying where they are. So we're kind of here on behalf of our tenants as well. So that was the reasoning behind that request. It was more of a identification, help with identification for our tenants. And then the design, the location is obviously equal exposure from both directions. So I'm not sure if I'm missing anything, but I'm willing to.
Well, the first and the fourth are a bit related. The monument sign that you're looking for, you'd like it larger than the code requires, but there's also an existing freestanding sign.
Yes,
So is the,
that would come down. Yep,
okay,
that's being replaced.
all right,
more or
so
less.
if this is granted, as a condition, your clients would be comfortable enough to, that existing freestanding sign is going to come down.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Note. All right, so going back up, then you're looking for a larger sign, and then you were looking for the sign to be 28 feet from the pavement when the code requires 35 feet.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the distance a little bit. Why are you proposing it to be closer?
That was between the sign company and some of our facilities guys, the area that was chosen. But when I spoke to the sign contractor before this meeting, and he said that's obviously something that can be modified to help with making sure that we stay within code. He said that.
Is it feasible to put that sign 35 feet from the pavement edge?
I believe it is, yes.
Your client would like it to be closer.
Yes.
Fair enough. All right, I'll hold some other questions. I think we have a general idea. Sarah, you got some questions?
I think mostly I have just a few statements. So my vote personally would be fine for it being closer to the side of the road there. Mostly because when I went to go see it, the sign where it is currently is very easy to see from one direction and very difficult to see from the other. So my personal thought would be, I would be fine with the location change. I don't necessarily understand the size change, because I think with meeting code, you could still list the number of things on the sign that you want to list, and it will still be just as visible. And as far as listing multiple things, I think that goes with the character of that neighborhood over there, because I believe there are other signs that list multiple things in each building opposed to just one. So those are really just my comments.
Anna?
That was my exact comment. For the first one, is when you go one way, you can see it, the other way, it's very hard to find back that far. Maybe they need some, I don't know if it's on their property, maybe maintain it differently. Could see it coming.
So you think that, do I hear both of you, that being a little closer to the road is going to make it easier to see?
From both directions.
Okay, got it. Anything else? Go ahead.
I'm one of those ones that I figure that 770 Canning Parkway is enough, because I'm not one for, there's Google and everything out there that you possibly can find a direction to Bristol Instruments. Not like 20 years ago where you couldn't find anything. Not in favor of the bigger sign.
Go ahead.
My comments are similar. I kind of see the distance or the size of the sign is a one or the other. Maybe pick one. Agree with what both the ladies here had said. On the, I wasn't sure, as I looked around just again on Google, the other businesses there, it seemed like one business per building, right? So it's somewhat unique that you've got, I think, 2 businesses per, right? And so the businesses that have one business per building, they put their business name on the sign, and that's kind of it, right? That's generally what the code enforcement allows. But the second there's more than one business, the code then says you can't list the businesses, right? You've got to call the building something, whether it's Bristol Instruments Landing or docket, whatever you want to call it. The other question I was going to have, I know code enforcement is not here, was does the address count as part of the sign, as part of signage? Is that in general what we
I
do?
don't, no, I don't think so. I think you could have the 770 Canning Parkway and call it Mount Vesuvius, or whatever you want to call the building.
But in terms of the size, do we think that the Canning 770
what you're
Parkway
saying.
is part of the square footage? Or is it really the physical sign?
Yeah, it would be part of the sign.
I know it's part of the sign, but what the town would consider signage, I'm not sure, would we consider the address part of the signage?
Right, is that included in the
Square footage.
20 square foot that you're permitted?
I'm assuming because he's here in front of us inAle's comments that I guess it probably is, but sometimes we ask those questions and we all kind of go, we're not. Yeah. So he goes to the size, and I wasn't sure if freestanding building identification size will not exceed 20 square feet.
The way that I read the code, the second sentence, B1, a building identification sign may be freestanding not to exceed 10 feet in height, 20 feet in total area.
Okay. So I concur. I think the sign should be able to conform size-wise with the code, but I'm okay with it being closer to the road. I think that would help offset it. In terms of the names of the businesses on it, you know, we see this a lot. You know, I generally, unless there's something that's just out of the ordinary, you know, hold our ground in terms of coming up with a unique name for the building or something to that effect. Again, just like they had said, you know, these businesses aren't here because they're looking for drive-by traffic to, you know, just be driving by and see DocX or Bristol Instruments, right? People seek them out or those businesses out. So I'm much more in favor of coming up with a name or something that establishes the building as something that they could use as a, hey, we're in such and such building, 770, and then Google will get you 99% of the way there regardless. But
I'm in agreement with the distance to the road. I think that we've all driven by it, at least sounds like it. It makes some sense. To touch on a few of the things, the tenants that are going to be in the building, could you tell us more then about who's going to be in the building and the need for people to find them specific? Maybe to amplify it a little bit. And I'm just going to, Auction Direct is here. People go to Auction Direct. They need to find that location. But if the business is more of a, employees go there, they work there, and really there isn't a lot of clients that go to the business itself and the need to say, gee, I need to know where Bristol Instruments is.
or it's
even
more
though-
about maybe how they find their customers.
Right.
Do they find their customers by someone driving by it, or they're really out there selling business to business or selling online, and maybe someone coming in from out of town needs to find their particular location, or it didn't seem to me like those two businesses are really counting on, like Auction Direct, someone driving by and, hey, look at those cars, you know, or look at the signage.
I think it's more of an accommodation request for our tenants, to be honest with you. I agree with what you're saying. They're not, like, it's not a retail situation. They're not people being sought out after normal day-to-day business, you know, consumer to business type transactions. But it's more of an accommodation request, I would say, for these two tenants.
They allowed signs on the building in this area? There's a monument sign, and then do you get a sign on the building?
I think the code said maybe one name on the building, one business identifying name.
Okay.
I'm inclined to, the way that I think about it is it's not a retail. Much like the U.S. Postal Service can find my address, my name isn't on my mailbox, the number is there, so the post can find it, delivery, UPS, whatever it is, they can find it, much like I would think with this particular address, whether it be Bristol Instruments or Dealer DocX, delivery should be able to find it, and customers, I think I'm not hearing that the need for customers to come to that location is a vital piece of the business. I'm inclined to really not see the need for that. And as far as the size goes, go up to the first one, so 24.5 square feet. Is that because of Bristol Instruments and Dealer DocX?
I think it was more or less just the design of the sign. Yeah, the names on it may have played a factor in that, I would assume. But yeah, I don't.
So if it sounds like this board is inclined to deny the name for the additional names for both the tenants, and it really needs to be the name of the plaza or the name of the building. And that almost, to me, it sounds like it goes hand in hand with the need for, or your want, the monument sign to be bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So we can either decide on it now, or you can go back to your client and say, gee, it doesn't sound like they're going to grant the two-tenant piece. do you still want to go for that 24 and a half? Because at the very, you're going to get, the code says you're going to have 20 feet, 20 square feet. But before we do that, sometimes what we've done is we've offered the applicants, say, why don't we table it, go back, make sure you got a clear view of what your clients want, say, no, we really don't need that, or no, we're still pushing for the 24 and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem going back and talking a little bit, getting a little more clarity in that regard. And
Okay. Is the board comfortable with that? Because that's how at least I see this, that first piece, the 24 and a half square feet, almost seems like it's tied into why they need it for the two tenants. That sound good, Sarah?
Yes.
Anna? Matt?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. So we either can take care of some of these or do it all at once at the next cycle. I don't know what your timetable is on this particular project.
the sooner the better. Yeah, I think we're trying to get this done before the winter, if that's even a possibility at this
Are
point.
they new tenants to the building? Like they
They've
just,
been there a couple of years now. This is, like I said, something they've been requesting. We're finally getting around to it and trying to push to get it done for them.
All right, our next meeting is, are we on, all right, we're still on 2 months. The next meeting is September 20th. Does that provide you with enough time?
September 20th?
Yes.
I think so.
And I think, certainly can't speak for the entire board, but it surely sounds like fourth request, the variance, that's almost a non-issue. That's going to come down. The 2 tenants doesn't sound good for you. The moving the sign 28 feet from the pavement edge, that sounds pretty good for you. So the issue that we have in front of us is whether or not you really need that 24 and a half. And if you don't, then my suggestion to you is withdraw that. And then the only ones we're really dealing with are the second, third, and fourth requests for variance. That sound okay?
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Questions?
I think so.
Good. Then we're going to table this. We'll see you on the 20th.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
One more minute.
Yep.
Okay. This is Auction Direct. You are,
Alan, excuse me, Alan Friedman.
hello, Alan. This one, you need a modification on a prior variance, right?
Yes.
And this has to do with a fence that was supposed to be installed and it wasn't.
In 1994, yes.
Wow. So have you purchased the property yet,
Yes.
or are you?
Yeah, well, we purchased it about a month ago, even though Don Stokem's boat's still over there. I can't get it off our property. But yeah, when we owned the property outright, it was a cash transaction.
Okay. So go ahead and make your presentation, and we're probably going to have a couple of questions for you.
Sure. Excuse me. So between the house that is no longer for residential use, we've made that clear to the town already, and the auto body shop, which is not branded at all, there was supposed to be, I guess, in 1994, a fence separating the two. It was never installed. This has been a non-issue apparently since '94. The only reason it came into play is when we went to buy the property. I guess Al came out and took a look at it, and obviously the code. We went before the planning board last month, and they granted us whatever they grant. And now I came here is just asking for permission not to put the fence up where the fence has never been, for lack of a better way of putting it. I don't know if anybody's been over near that property yet. It is night and day from what it used to. We're not done cleaning it up yet. I gotta get the boat out of there so I can excavate the ground, but that property already looks 1,000% better than it has since 1994 is my guess, and we're gonna continue to improve on it. We're not putting the auction direct name on the building, but people are aware that we own it, so we're gonna treat it like an auction direct property and make sure that we have Country Care Landscaping do the store, and now they're doing that, and once the boat moves, we'll excavate that land between the house and the auto body shop and plant some grass seed there and see if
So
something will grow.
the collision body shop is still there? It's still going to be there?
It's not open to the public. We've moved our paint facility out of the main store into this body shop here.
Okay, so you own the whole corner?
Right, the front, Don still lives in the back side of the property, but we own the house and the auto body shop right on the road.
Okay.
Yep. And the signs are down already. I mean, like I said, that place looked terrible, so we're trying to clean it up quickly. And I think the fence, once we get done with it, the fence won't be necessary, especially if there's no residents in it. It was originally put in there so the residents living in the house wouldn't look at the body shop. Well, it's a non-residential house. I wish the house would just fall down, but we're using it for storage, and that's all we're looking for, is not to put the fence up
Not to put the fence up?
where it's never been. Yes.
I think part of the,
How did this find its way to us? Just curious.
how did it find its way?
Yeah, how did,
Because what he's asking for is that the variance that required the fence to go up, that he don't want to put the fence up. So he needs
this
to be.
came up as you're closing on the property and your
Oh, I
attorney
see what
pointed
you're
it out, or like?
Yeah, well, I guess when Al came to do the building inspection, it was one of the things to code he noticed. And I mean, I said, we went to the planning board first, and they approved it, and then I guess I had to come here because it's a
Okay.
zoning issue as well, so.
So there's a variance in place that has a condition to put this fence up.
It's right here.
Right, right, and it had to do with because the neighbors, to contain his stuff.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, yes. That 18-wheeler trailer is gone, all that stuff is gone. And like I
So
said,
because to keep in spirit of what that variance was there for in the first place, do you have any intention of storing anything outside the building?
outside the building? No, there are cars that are moving in and out there constantly, so it's not like the cars that used to sit there for weeks on end. But if you drive by there now, I think you can see 4 or 5 cars from the road that we're working on that'll.
Right, well, I think that's what we're trying to, at least I'm trying to figure out, is the reason why that variance was there is to contain the stuff. Well, if there's a modification to the variance that says you don't need the fence, and then stuff starts to be created again, how does the community, how does this board then know that you're not going to start that snowball of stuff that is now accumulated in?
Because we're not doing what he did. He was a full body shop, so he was doing, he had a frame machine in there. He did collisions. We're not doing collision stuff at all. We're doing, we buy a car from the auction, we have to fix the bumper, so we take it off, paint it, put the bumper back on. We're not a full service body shop. So the amount of stuff that he needed will never be there. I don't have the need, and we went from about a 1,200 square foot shop over at the main store to a 4,500 square foot building. We have more room right now than we've ever, could imagine. And we have no need to go outside the house. Everything we're doing is self-contained. The paint booths are active, they work, they're up to, everything about what we're doing is no different than what we did down at the main store when the paint booth was there. So we're looking to improve the community. Like I said, we're not putting a
I get
sign
it.
on. Yeah.
I get it. What I'm trying to create is, I hear what you're saying. But once you walk out that door, and if it's not words on paper that, if you will, puts that fence of honor around your property, how do we know that that's going to happen? So what I'm trying to create is putting some conditions on what you're going to use the property for, so it doesn't get like it
Right,
was, if you follow me.
Yes.
So we can hold that thought a little
Sure.
bit. And Sarah, you have any questions, concerns on this one?
Just a question, could we also condition that no more than like 8 or 10 vehicles are stored outside at any given time? Like, could that be a condition that we add?
How many, I think it could be, how many vehicles do you think at any one time would be outside of the structure?
I believe what we got approved when we purchased the property from either Al or the planning board was we'd have no more than, I think, 15 or 20, and I'd have to go back and double check, but they're not permanent sitting cars. They're not like, we're not selling cars out of that building, so the quicker those cars leave there, the better, because I need to get them painted, or, or whatever, we're painting them, and get them back to the main store for retail. So the goal is not, the cars they're taking over are, like, the stuff they brought over tonight is the stuff that they plan on working on tomorrow, and then those cars will go back tomorrow, and another group will come over.
What's the longest a car would be there?
Maybe, on an outside chance, maybe a week. And that's extreme. There's just no reason to store them there that long. Something's wrong, if someone's out sick, or something's wrong if they're there any longer.
Right, so if one of the conditions was that at any one time, a particular vehicle would be there, wouldn't be there any more than a week, and a maximum of 20 vehicles outside of the, I'm not saying that that's okay, but I'm just trying to figure out what you need.
And if I could, we're not using the side of the house where the fence is supposed to be. We're not not putting cars there anyway. So the only place we're putting cars is really what we're doing is we had to get a 10-foot, I guess you call offset to the property. We bought it, they had to rezone it 10 feet out, so that we did that on the thing to make it 10 feet longer, so we could also put cars on the back of the house, and then we're trying to, if you go by there, I just drove by there coming here tonight, there's 3 cars in front of the building, and maybe 3 or 4 on the visible side of Plaster Mill. So, I mean, we're very cognizant about, in the wintertime, our goal will be to keep as many of them inside as possible for weather purposes. So we're not looking to keep a clutter out there. We're not looking, I got, 2 employees that work in there. There's 2, motorcycle and a truck out there every day, and they go home, they clean the property up, and that's our only plan. I mean, I'll give you my word, or put it in writing. If you see something, we'll put a fence up. I mean, I'm not worried about what the long-term, how we're going to treat the property long-term, because I know how much we're going to use the property and what we're doing.
All right, let's just keep kicking this around a little bit. Anything else, Sarah?
No, that was
Donna?
Nothing.
Matt?
So 1988, I know it wasn't a long time ago. Okay. But it's been a few years since 88. And as I read the variance, the very first condition says that this variance be granted to Donald Stokeham, and that if there were to be a change in use of the property, that the applicant would have to come back before the Town of Victor Zoning Board of Appeals. Would you consider this a change of use? I know the code has definitely matured since 88. Is what you're using I mean, is this an opportunity to just wipe the slate clean and have a discussion about what you want to do with the property so that you get what you
All
want?
we're doing is auto body painting over there, and I mean, that's the gist of what we're doing. So, yeah, we're not, and that's kind of what I was saying, we're not.
Not doing collision and repair?
No, I'm not, if I'm replacing something, it's a fender, it's not, 4 doors and I'm trying to unbend a frame over there, it's not what we're doing, these are
What the
retail cars.
Code
I think that
calls it, would we say it's the same use, same use?
the use is permitted within the code of both what it was and what he wants to do.
But this specifically says if there's a change in use, that he needs to come, the new owner is back in front of us anyways.
It's kind of a diminished use of a bigger project.
His comments are that we would, in order to remove the requirement for the fence, prior ZBA resolutions would need to be modified as well as planning board approvals. I think the modification needs to be made is that fence to the south.
I'm just wondering if today, based on today's code and definition of auto body repair or paint shop, what would the code say today would this site have to look like? Would it say there would need to be a fence? Would it say it couldn't, like, what, I'm looking to see if that helps you, not
Yeah, I
further
appreciate
imposes
that,
other
yeah.
stuff you gotta do or put up. Because I'm just wondering if we could use the number 1, to our advantage to say, hey, it's a different use, there's another, the code would tell you that you gotta do this with this property, does that work for you or not? I don't, because I don't
I don't,
If it's commercial light industrial, and I know in the past we've done,
I understand what Al's trying to say is that zoning board required that a fence to go on that particular spot.
Right.
Regardless if the code changes as time moves forward, that variance still stands. still is
what I'm
required.
saying is a condition of that variance says that if he changes, someone changes the use, that they're back in front of the zoning board to talk about it. So I don't know if this is trying to imply, Mike, that, you know, it's kind of not saying null and void, but does that null and void this if we determine that it's a change in use, and therefore you're kind of starting over?
So are you saying then if by some chance you grow out of that building and a type of collision shop that was there before, that fence gonna need to
If it's
go?
still going to be a collision, so if the change in use, not change in ownership, if you're going to use it for a collision shop,
Right.
then we got to talk about the fence. If you're going to use it as, I'll say, a daycare center, I would say you don't, you know, you'd have to come in front of us and we would somehow make this null and void or have a discussion about it. But now we're kind of in this gray area where it's not going to be a collision shop, it's going to be more of a paint. Is that a different enough use for us to say, well, that kind of triggers number one? Now, what does the code say about that?
I would think if he wants to use it as a paint light collision shop and we put some reasonable conditions on it, if he decides to say, I'm gonna go full collision at that place,
Like it was before,
like it was before.
and he doesn't change the use, yeah, then we're here talking about,
Then
he
I-
might need that fence, or.
Right, then, right, then he's in violation of the variance
So
modification.
maybe this will help. Do we think that this is a change in use? What he's described, he wants to do there?
I think they're very similar. He's
Similar
still
enough?
working on
Okay.
vehicles. Vehicles are coming in. He's either repairing them, painting them. I think it's very similar use.
Okay.
So I don't think it's a change in use. I think for us, it's just either we have to say you have to put the fence other anyway, or you don't. That's the way I'm looking at that.
If he decides to go full-blown collision shop there, then the fence needs to go out.
Right.
'Cause the variance requires it. All we're doing is modifying it
Right.
for this particular owner to use it in a particular way with these particular conditions. But for now, the fence doesn't have to go up. But if this owner,
But are you also in agreement with the maximum of 7 vehicles, which would be contained within the stockade fence? Like all of those, it sounds like there's a different deal that you've got with the planning board where it was 15 or 20.
Well, that would require us parking cars on the side of the building that we don't plan on ever parking cars. So where that fence was to block those cars in, which is, I'm terrible with directions, so I'm sorry. So if you're facing the
go ahead.
property,
look at the map, that's why I was, let's use,
so this is where the fence is.
right, to the south of the,
I'm not storing cars. This is the house, so the cars there, because you have permission.
okay, so you, hold on, let's just clarify for the record. So what you were describing to me, as you're pointing out, you have no intention on storing vehicles in between the business and to the south of the business and in between that house.
No.
Right. Your vehicle storage is going to be to the,
It's upside down.
on,
It's even worse.
on the Plaster Mill side and on the McMahon side.
Side and then back here and then a few.
Okay, so you're looking then, you only want to store vehicles to the north, to the east and west of the property, not in the south.
So the difference here, right, is that the variance wants you to have the fence and to put all the vehicles behind the fence, so it obviously can't be seen.
That's
Right.
it, I get it.
That's how,
Okay.
the outside storage of damaged vehicles be kept to a maximum of 7 vehicles, which would be contained within a stockade fence. that the fence would come from the southeasterly corner of the proposed addition, continue for approximately 2 car spaces beyond the south side of the building with an 8-foot section going towards the east. 2 sections of fencing should be added to the north end of the block storage from view of persons on Plaster Mill Road as well. So it's a bit of an L shape. So this, I'm just trying to get to what do they want him to do in ADA? I think they wanted you to put this L shape or up towards Plaster Mill Road, right? Was it talking about something like this? And that everything had to be, something like this, and everything had to be behind it.
There's not even enough room on the front. It's already dangerous.
It is.
Right, I
Yeah,
think the
because I
issue
lived
was to the south. That's where that fence was supposed to go.
To the south, but it's a half of a square, right? It's not just a straight line.
No. My geometry is failing me on what shape that is. It's not a square.
I won't tell anybody like.
Car spaces to the south side of the building with an 8-foot section going towards the east. That way.
Right.
And should be added, 2 sections of fencing should be added at the north end to block storage from the view of persons on Plaster Mill Road as well. I don't know what they were trying to say. If they were trying to say there should be on the north end, like up here, it's tough.
Corner's
Can you then say that the primary temporary car storage is going to be to the north of the building and to the west? Right, so north and,
Okay, so one class, no McMahon.
right, so north and west are your primary storage, and the secondary is gonna be onto the east.
Because the concern wasn't just from the house. The concern is also people driving on Plaster Mill Road, are they going to drive by and see all these damaged vehicles
That's what we've been seeing for 20 years.
and such, right? No, I get it, but now here we are, right, trying to,
Sorry.
trying to, so that's what I'm trying to get at. Your vehicles aren't going to be in
27 pieces.
disarray, or you're repainting and.
Bumpers with paint. That's probably 70% of
You're it's the word dollop, or what's the pretty up? Isn't there some words that you,
the dollops is what we call
okay, this is a little more, it's,
This is, they
okay.
strip the paper.
All right, so in a worst-case scenario, that any vehicle, a red make, model, particular car is sitting there for 2 weeks, the way that I'm sensing this board wants to go is that's going to be in violation of the code. If you're going to tell us 1 week is plenty of time, and the primary parking area is going to be to the north and west, secondary to the east. You will not park any vehicles to the south. And there's also a condition that you're going to clean that thing up.
The only thing that's still there is the boat.
So,
Trailer's gone.
All right, you got to call the sheriffs on that one then.
Yeah, no, I know, we're handling it.
Oh, sorry.
Get to behind the microphone so I can hear you. I won't.
Sorry.
I'm kind of looking at it as, if the cars he's putting out there aren't damaged and wrecked,
No.
my personal opinion is just a parked car. It's not a eyesore that the community is going to drive by for 2 weeks at a time. Is there some kind of condition that we can say or feel comfortable with that? Okay, cars that are not in some kind of physical disarray or wrecked, or I don't know how we would describe it. Because that's the intent here of this 1988 drawing or document, right, or variance, was they didn't want, I know what happened, but the intent here was, no, we didn't want people driving by, looking at a whole bunch of wrecked cars along Plaster Mill Road.
Well, that's why I figured if you limit it to maximum of 1 week for this many cars in these spaces, for that kind of business, it's gonna keep it moving. And Al, if it turns out that if the vehicle is there for 2 weeks, Al's gonna go, come on, you gotta get that car out of there, it's a heap of junk, and get it off the property. Don't store boats or whatever it is.
And our junk cars, our wholesale cars stay at the main store, and we have a wholesaler that comes and picks them up. So that kind of merchandise would never, this is only retailable cars that we're bringing over to this shop.
I wouldn't know how to craft
Yeah,
the
that's what
condition if you just say that many vehicles for that period of time, just keep it moving. Keep whatever it is, just keep it moving.
Okay. You okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they're there more than a week, I got other problems. I mean, we gotta get these things through here, so,
He
yeah.
doesn't want those.
ABC.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we jumped around a little bit. I don't know where we were at. Are you done? You got more questions?
The only other thing I was saying is because this is gonna go with the land,
Right.
what we do, and I do think it's important to have something that says that the cars are not gonna be wrecked vehicles or something. So if it does go back to a collision shop, we don't open the door to having a real collision shop put out a half a dozen wrecked vehicles on Plaster Mill Road.
I hear you. I just don't know how to craft that. When you say,
Wrecked, like non-drivable or I don't know, it's a way to,
Like they've looked for 20 years.
yeah.
They just won't, I promise you, they just won't be there.
I know you
Yeah,
are, but when you're wildly successful and you outgrow this place and someone else comes in
I got you.
and wants it to be a body shop, a real body shop, there's now nothing that says they can't.
you have my total vehicles?
Yeah.
Total vehicles, so no total vehicles would be there. What about when a fender comes off? What happens to the fender?
They do it inside. They'll do that inside the building.
Right, but if the fender needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
You put a new one on, what happens to the old one? We just don't want it to go out.
Right,
and,
no,
you know,
they
and-
take it to either the scrapyard or the chemical stuff Safety Clean comes and picks up for us, so it's, yeah.
So there'll be no total vehicles there,
Oh, I don't know.
and there'll be no, what do you call them? Not spare parts, but
Scrap or
Crap.
Yeah.
junk.
parts, yeah.
Well, they could have a storage bin to put it in or something. They would put it in a dumpster.
But maybe we limit it to no outdoor storage of it. So he has to leave it in the building until it gets picked up.
You do that? Does that
You know,
create a bigger
the
problem?
paint and stuff, I know we can. The actual body parts, I don't want to speak for my paint manager, because I don't know. I sounds reasonable to me, but I'm not the one taking these parts off. Like, the question you just asked, what happens to these parts? I just signed the checks. I don't know who actually handles that, so.
Supposed to know.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't know I was gonna get asked that, so I'd actually have to find that out for you. They're not replacing every bumper, a lot of times they're just painting them, so my guess is, yeah, with the extra space, that would be feasible, but I don't want to 100% say yes to something I'm not sure of.
I don't know,
It won't make
24,
or break
48,
Yeah.
it. It won't
It won't
make
make
it or
or
break it
Yeah.
for me, but.
What do you do with it at Auction Direct when you've been doing all this work over there? Where does it go?
So I know the paints and stuff, Safety Clean picks up.
Okay.
As far as the actual rest of the body, I'm assuming when they take all the rest of the scrap metal. We do scrap metal runs, 2 or 3 times a week, because rotors alone, we have hundreds, so.
Find a metal bumper these days.
So really, the scrap junk parts, they're not on the premises longer than 48 hours?
I very rarely, and everything's cleaned up at week's end. Everything's always cleaned up. But by Friday, we leave those buildings, excuse me, as clean as we can.
right, what do you want to do with the scrap junk parts? I'm not sure how to deal with it.
To me, it's not a deal breaker. I'm more focused on just making sure that there aren't wrecked vehicles
Yeah.
down the road. I know he's not gonna do it, but to the point, this runs with the land.
Yep.
Okay, we're good. So conditions, no totaled vehicles. The primary storage of vehicles are going to be on the west and north. Secondary will be on the east. No vehicles will be stored in the south. And the maximum number of vehicles on the premises will be 20.
That's
Won't be
rare.
there for longer than a week.
And that's, like I said, that's very rare, if something like that's going
So
on.
we did this kind of backwards on the conditions, but any of the conditions, usually we do the conditions last. All right, does that pretty much cover it? Okay, good.
I'm good.
All righty, so let's go through,
Was this a new variance? Is this a
it's a modification.
modification?
So, and this has been,
Public, any comments?
Oh.
Did we-
anyone want to speak for or against? Sue, anybody? All right, so this will be a modification of the, all right, which one was it?
May 2nd, 1988.
So this was done in 88. There we go. Okay. A modification of the 1988 variance requiring a fence to the south of the primary structure. Criteria, an undesirable change will not be produced in the character or detriment to nearby properties, creating the modification of the variance. Primarily, we have a new owner who is improving the property, who is currently cleaning the property up, removing the totaled and junked vehicles. The only vehicle remaining is a boat.
Not ours.
Working on that. And the use of the property is going to be a light collision paint body shop. It won't be a full collision.
Right.
And we don't want to add anything else to the first criteria. Second, the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the modification of the variance. Really putting up the fence isn't going to serve, with the present use of it, any purpose or any good for it. The property is markedly being improved with removal of the totaled vehicles, collision, and soon boat. Anything else on the second criteria? Third, the requested area variance is not substantial. The purpose of the original variance requiring the fence is to fence in all of the damaged and totaled vehicles from the prior owner. The present owner doesn't need to have, or doesn't want to have, any kind of total vehicles on it. Again, it's very light collision paint. And then briefly, the conditions, 1 week, maximum of 20 cars, and storage primarily on the west and the north, and secondary being on the east side of the property. Anything else for the third criteria? Fourth, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. I don't see it. This is really an improvement to this particular parcel. Fifth, the alleged difficulty is self-created. The condition is relevant to the decision of the board, but should not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. I'm going to go through this criteria again, or you're good? Got it? Awesome. Anything else from anyone? Sounds good. I'd like to have a motion for approval with the conditions in place.
Make that motion?
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sarah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Thanks so much for
Thank
your
you all very
time, your
much.
patience. Good luck to you. Thank you for your work. Anything else before the board? Apparently, I have some timesheets to do.
I've got a couple myself.
I will do them for the next meeting, I promise. Is that on the record? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Good, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks so much, have a good night.
I was gonna ask, whatever happened to the, remember the car place